Kang Nok Nguyen, Ken Win. Petty Officer, Second Class, Michael A. Noeth, United States Navy. Barbara K. Olson. Ruben S. Ornado. Diana B. Padro. Lieutenant Jonas M. Panic, United States Navy Reserve. Major Clifford L. Patterson, Jr., United States Army. Robert Penninger. Robert R. Plogger III. And his wife, Zandra F. Plogger. Lieutenant Darren H. Pontel, United States Navy Reserve. Scott Powell. Captain Jack D. Punches, United States Navy, retired. Petty Officer First Class Joseph J. Picor, Jr., United States Navy. Lisa J. Raines. Deborah A. Ramser. Rhonda Sue Rasmussen. Petty Officer First Class Marcia D. Ratchford, United States Navy. Martha M. Reski. Todd H. Rubin. Cecilia E. Richard. Edward V. Rowenhorst. Judy Rowlett. Sergeant Major Robert E. Russell, United States Army, retired. Chief Warrant Officer William R. Ruth, United States Army, Reserve. Charles E. Sabin, Sr. Marjorie C. Salamone. John P. Semartino.
Colonel David M. Scales, United States Army. Commander Robert A. Schlegel, United States Navy. Janice M. Scott. Lieutenant Colonel Michael L. Selvez, United States Army, retired. Marianne H. Serva. Commander Dan F. Shanower, United States Navy. Annette M. Sherman. Diane M. Simmons. And her husband, George W. Simmons. Donald D. Simmons. Cheryl D. Sincock. Chief Greg H. Smallwood, United States Navy. Lieutenant Colonel Gary F. Smith, United States Army, retired. Mary Ray Sopper. Robert Spiesman. Patricia J. Statz. Edna L. Stevens. Norma Lang Sturley. Sergeant Major Larry L. Strickland, United States Army. Hilda E. Taylor. Lieutenant Colonel Kip P. Taylor, United States Army. Leonard E. Taylor. Sandra C. Taylor. Sandra D. Teague. Lieutenant Carl W. Tapie, United States Army, retired. Sergeant Tamara C. Thurman, United States Army. Lieutenant Commander Otis V. Tolbert, United States Navy. Staff Sergeant Willie Q. Troy, United States Army, retired. Lieutenant Commander Ronald J. Vack, United States Navy Reserve. Lieutenant Colonel Karen J. Wagner, United States Army. Meta L. Fuller. Specialist Chin Suk Pak Wells, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Madeline A. White, United States Army. Sandra L. White. Ernest M. Wiltshire. Lieutenant Commander David L. Williams, United States Navy. Major Dwayne Williams, United States Army. Chief Marvin Roger Woods, United States Navy, retired. Captain John D. Yamanicki, Sr., United States Navy, retired. Vicky Yancey. Petty Officer 2nd Class Kevin W. Yoakum, United States Navy. Chief Donald M. Young, United States Navy. Edmund G. Young, Jr. Lisa L. Young. Xuanyang Yang. And her husband, Yuguang Zhang.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the invocation.
Would you help me pray this morning? God, we thank you first for the many blessings you have bestowed upon this amazing country. The freedoms that we appreciate, the leaders that we have, and the amazing support that we see this morning. We pause this morning to remember the 184 lives lost here, as well as those in New York and Pennsylvania, from the deadliest attack on American soil in our history. We remember their names that were just read. We remember their dreams, remember the families, some that are here today that represent them. We remember the emergency responders, the more than 400 police, over 344 firefighters, and nearly 7,000 military service members that gave of themselves in service to our country, to rescue, to protect fellow Americans. We remember our country's leadership and all that they did to ensure that this would never happen again. From our presidents on 2001, stated a great people have been moved to defend a great nation. These acts shattered steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. In 2010, he said, we stand with one another. We fight alongside one another. We do not allow ourselves to be defined by fear, but by the hopes we have for our families, for our nation, for a brighter future. And in 2020, in the memory of the lives lost, we resolve to stand united, one American nation, to defend our freedoms, to uphold our values, to love our neighbors, to cherish our country, to care for our communities, to honor our heroes, and to never, ever forget. As we enter the 23rd year after that fateful day, we always recall the 23rd Psalm. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. God, whatever valley that we might face as a nation, may we remember this day, those that were here, those that served across this great country, and those that stood for a cause greater than themselves, those that stood up to serve their fellow American. May we always remember that day, live our lives in reflection to cherish the freedoms, the many blessings, the amazing liberties of the United States of America. For God and country, amen. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in remembrance of the lives lost on September 11th, 2001.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, General Mark A. Milley, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Secretary Austin, distinguished guests, and most importantly, the survivors and the families of the fallen, thank you all for participating in this morning's ceremony. Today, we pay tribute to the 2,977 innocent men, women, and children who lost their lives 22 years ago today at this very minute. The incomprehensible acts of September 11th created a void in our nation, left by the thousands who never returned home. Their families feel the absence of fathers and mothers and sons and daughters at birthdays and holidays and graduations and weddings and on ordinary days of the week when their loss suddenly moves them yet again. And today we honor those who perished, and today we uphold our enduring promise to never forget. At 9:37 a.m., right now, 22 years ago, on September 11th, 2001, American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, right about where we are. And 184 souls were murdered as terrorism battered America's shores. The hijackers were driven by a twisted ideology rooted in hatred and oppression. And they took the lives of the 59 passengers and crew and the 125 of our Pentagon colleagues. Those terrorists hated America. They hated our Constitution and the values that bind us together as a nation. They hated freedom and democracy and the idea that we are all equal. Those terrorists wanted to destroy our country. But on that day, and every day since, the United States has demonstrated that we would never bow to fear and hatred. Momentarily shaken, the United States rose from the ashes of the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania to show the world that we were still standing, that we could not be toppled, that terror would never destroy us. The New York City Fire Department arrived at the World Trade Center within 6 minutes of the plane colliding into the building. Firefighters, first responders, and everyday heroes led thousands of survivors down dozens of flights of stairs, making repeated trips back into the building, sacrificing their lives so that others may live for people they had never met. The 40 passengers and crew on United Flight 93 fought back against the hijackers, thwarting the terrorists and saving perhaps thousands on the ground. At the Pentagon, many survivors were rescued by their co-workers who were themselves reeling from the explosive force of the impact and nearly impenetrable fire and smoke. Through sheer will and their own knowledge of the building, they plunged into the smoke and debris. Fearless, without regard to their own life, they plunged into that horror that littered the corridors to seek out the bloodied and the burned survivors and deliver them from the inferno. Amidst the explosions, the fire, and the terror, ordinary Americans demonstrated extraordinary valor and courage. Despite the loss of 125 of our colleagues and a gaping, smoking hole between corridors 4 and 5 of the Pentagon, it did not close. and the leaders of the day assured the American public that the doors of the Pentagon will be open again on September 12th. And indeed, the next day, thousands of military, civilian, and contractors showed up for work, some before sunrise, filled with renewed purpose and determination as the American flag unfolded over the gaping hole. The building was still on fire, yet these incredible men and women continued to defend our democracy and our nation. And over the past 22 years, many more have chosen to step forward and serve the cause of freedom. Every single day, the men and women who have worn the cloth of our nation have protected and defended the principles that were under attack that day. So today, we honor and remember those we lost on that fateful morning. We continue to stand watch on freedom's frontier around the world to ensure that those fallen did not die in vain. Today, we reaffirm our resolve to ensure that our experiment in liberty, this e pluribus unum, continues for future generations. 22 years ago, hatred and terror did not win. It did not destroy America. Freedom and democracy and the very pillars of this great nation continue to endure. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce our Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin III. Thank you, and may God bless the fallen, their families, and may God bless the United States of America.
Well, thank you, General Milley. Good morning, everyone. I am absolutely honored to be here with all of you on this day of remembrance and resolve. And I'm especially moved to be here with the family members of those we lost, with the survivors of the attacks, and with the first responders who raced to save innocent lives. To the families and the loved ones of the 184 people who lost their lives on 9/11 here at the Pentagon and on Flight 77, let me extend my deepest condolences on behalf of the Department of Defense. I know that being here is hard. I know that it aches to remember this milestone year after year. And I know that nothing can make it right. And as the years go by, it may feel that the world is moving on or even forgetting what happened here on September 11th, 2001. But please know this. The men and women of the Department of Defense will always remember. And we will always honor the memory of our fallen teammates. And we will always strive to be worthy of the memory of those we lost. September 11th reminds us that the American spirit still shines in times of testing. After the attacks, amid the horror and the grief, many Americans felt a deeper sense of duty to their communities and to their country. And all around the country, with hearts breaking for the slain and the suffering, Americans looked within themselves and felt called to give back. In those terrible first hours and days, people rushed to give blood, to volunteer in hospitals, or to hand out food and water to exhausted first responders. And here at the Pentagon, an outstanding group of employees and volunteers got a family assistance center up and running in less than a day. And over the next month, Over 2,500 people volunteered there. And so they worked long hours to serve hot meals and provide counseling and offer medical care and help families through their grief. You know, not every act of service was monumental. We remember a hug for a soldier on the streets of Manhattan, or a child's handwritten thank you card for a firefighter. But every act of grace changed us, drawing out a strength and a sense of common purpose that became part of the story of that day and part of the story of our country. As the months and years went by, many Americans chose to help those in need or to fortify our security in a newly uncertain world. September 11th made America a nation at war. And hundreds of thousands stepped up to serve our country in uniform. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have come to a close. But we remain relentlessly focused on combating terrorist threats to America. And I want to thank all of my fellow veterans who served in combat during 2 hard decades of war after 9/11, as well as their families for all that they gave. The courage and the compassion that we witnessed after September 11th were even more extraordinary when they came from Americans who lost loved ones. I'm thinking today of Kang Nguyen, who was born in South Vietnam in a time of chaos. He finally made it to America with his family and eventually graduated from the University of Maryland with a degree in electrical engineering. And on 9/11, he was working as a systems administrator at the Navy Command Center right here in the Pentagon. He left behind a beloved wife, too, and their 4-year-old son, An. Tu, who also worked for the department, was devastated by her husband's death. But she resolved to be strong to support their son. And so, 22 years later, Tu and An are incredibly close. And their tie has only grown stronger from the loss that they've endured. They talk every day. And she is so proud of the young man that Tu has become, that An has become. An still tries to make his dad proud and to honor his legacy in ways big and small. And that can mean echoing Kang's love of learning, or taking up the guitar, or simply staying engaged with his community and finding ways to help others, just as his dad did. So in September 2021, on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, Tu visited this memorial to place flowers on the bench with her husband's name on it. And she felt a wave of sadness looking at the benches honoring other victims that were bare. So she called up a friend, and they came back here together. And they laid a rose on each of the 184 benches around us. And so now, thanks to Tu's simple act of kindness, every year on this day, the Department of Defense upholds that tradition, laying a rose on every bench to honor the memory of every soul taken from us here on 9/11. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have To and On here with us today. And I want to thank them and all of the families of the fallen. September 11th changed you forever. But you changed us forever. In so many ways, you turned grief into grit and sorrow into strength. And you helped us to see beyond ourselves and give back to our fellow Americans, and to deepen our democracy and to work toward a stronger, safer future. So it is our duty to carry out the missions that your loved ones chose. It's our duty to live up to the goodness that they embody. And it's our duty to defend the democracy that they love so much. So we will always seek to meet that challenge. We will always strive to live up to their example and their memory. We will always work to keep America safe. And we will always, always remember. May God bless you all, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the singing of God Bless America.
And now receive the benediction. God, we thank you for this time that we could pause to hear the names, to remember the lives the Americans lost. I thank you for the comfort given to those who have lost friends or loved ones on that fateful day, and how you continue to give peace to those who seek it. I thank you for the courage displayed by those who thought of a purpose greater than their own, rushing in to help other Americans in need. As we have remembered this day, I pray that we few will be the source of life, a source of hope for many, so that we can live our lives in such a way to reflect the goodness in our world. Help us to be bringers of hope. Help us to exemplify the dedication to courage and honor, and even the periods of peace and moments of terror. May our commitment to love and compassion be felt by others around us. Finally, Lord, I pray that as we leave this solemn place of remembrance, that you will continue to bless us as bearers of goodwill. Bless all that serve others, civilians, military, law enforcement, and firefighters. May we remember those that serve others. We honor the memory of those that have gone before us and those that gave their very lives. Bless each person assembled here and for those who could not make it. May God bless the United States of America. For God and country, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Thank you for joining us this morning. The Pentagon Memorial, the Pentagon Memorial Chapel, and the Navy Reflection Room are open until 12 p.m.